This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started today, I want to make sure I take the time out to remind you, as always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, make sure you never miss an episode, make sure you're always on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Be very appreciated, very helpful, allow us to see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And lucky for us football fans out there, we have more weekday football to discuss. Last week it was, Wednesday? I know we had another Tuesday night game in the past. I want to say it involved the Titans. Like Titans-Bills or something like that. I could be making that one up. I know we had another Tuesday game before. And obviously we had another Tuesday game today on top of a Monday night doubleheader. So, like I said, we'll start with the Tuesday game because obviously it was the one that happened most recently. Ravens, Cowboys. Not really much of a surprise. Again, you were kind of curious to see how the Ravens would look. Now they were getting some guys back. Obviously, when Lamar was back, they had their running backs were more back. Obviously, Mark Ingram and Dobbins were cleared to play, I believe, for the last one. Some other guys were cleared to play, but obviously they had more of a full complement of a team. Also, again, they added some new guys, like I said, like Lamar. So, like I said, they were getting their team back. You kind of wanted to see because this was a big game for them due to the fact that the Browns continue to win and due to the fact that they're on the outside looking in still. They're on the outside looking in still in the playoff race. Like right now, they're still the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's still 8 teams ahead of them. Well, they're tied with the Raiders, but as ranked currently, they're ahead of them. The Raiders are. So, like I said, they still got to fight. This is not like last year where they were running away with. Not running away with, but they were clearly going to make the playoffs. They were clearly at the top of the conference. This is not that. Like I said, they're going to have to fight and scrap and claw these last 4 weeks, and it starts on Monday night. Well, next Monday, obviously against the Browns. Like I said, that's the game for both teams, really. Like I said, it's a game because the Browns got smoked by the Ravens to begin the year. Kind of some get back. And also it's the game the Ravens need because if they want to get to the playoffs, they kind of have to win this game. Obviously, they don't have to, per se, because they have the Jaguars, Giants, who aren't that bad, and the Bengals, who are going to be terrible. So like I said, they have winnable games the last 3. But like I said, the Giants aren't a terrible team right now. They're playing very well. And like I said, you want to kind of give yourself a better chance to get in. Like I said, you drop one, you get in, it's 10-6. Like I said, there's a lot of good teams in the AFC this year, so there's no guarantee that 10-6 gets you in. 11-5, now that'll probably get you in. Again, no guarantee because they are still currently in 8th or 9th place. But like I said, they're 9th. Like I said, 11-5, so you're a little bit more confident about that. So like I said, it was big to get this win to kind of help get them back on the right track because they dropped 3 in a row. And 4 of their last 5. They said in their last 5 games, they lost to Steelers, beat the Colts, had to come back in that one, lost to the Patriots, lost to the Titans, and then lost to the Steelers again. So like I said, they lost 4 of their last 5, so they kind of have to get back on the right track heading into Monday night. So like I said, this game allowed them to do that, and they did what they do best, and that's run the ball. Ran for 300 yards on the ground, something like that. 294, excuse me, only 294, not 300. I'm going to say Gus Edwards had 100 yards, Lamar had 94, Dobbins at 71. Ingram was really the only one that wasn't that efficient. He only had 28 on 6 carries for a measly 4.7 yards per carry. The passing game still wasn't that great. Lamar only threw for 107 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That was off Hollywood Brown's hands. So there's that. And also, like, the touchdown throw to Hollywood Brown was great. So I said that's some good, has some bad. But like you said, when the Cowboys, as bad as they are and as confused as they looked, and just as easily as they were blowing off the ball in this one, which, again, not surprising if you've watched most of the Cowboys games this year. This is kind of how it's gone. The Browns, this is very reminiscent of that Browns game where they just ran all over them to the tune of, like, what was it, 49 points they gave up in that game in Jerry World? I'm sorry, but like I said, this was nothing new. Like I said, you saw in the Lamar run, like, Van Der Esch is running, like, the wrong way. Like, that just seems to happen. Like, there's just either guys getting blown off the ball, getting blocked, or they're just, like, not reading their keys right. They're not in the right spot, and then, like, they're just a big hole, and the running back or the quarterback or the receiver, in Odell's case back in the Browns game, is just running free and untouched and into the end zone. So, like I said, this game was no different. And then on the offensive side of things for the Cowboys, I mean, they moved the ball a little bit. Ran for over 100 yards on the ground. Dalton threw the ball almost 50 times to the tune of a little under 300 yards. Had 2 touchdowns himself. So again, they didn't, like, the offense wasn't like that bad, but I think they missed 3 field goals. I want to say they missed 3 field goals in this game. Justin Tucker missed a field goal too. That was kind of wild. But yeah, they missed 3 field goals in this game. That's win the game. Again, they lost by 17. Like I say, you 17 at 9. Now it's 8. So like I said, that end of the game drive is a bit different. And also maybe the touchdown that they gave up at the end to J.K. Dobbins is defended a little bit harder, knowing you're still in the game. And at that point, you would have been a lot closer. That would have been for the lead, or I guess to extend the lead. And then again, they could have gone for 2 or whatever. But like I said, the missed kicks hurt because like I said, they moved the ball a little bit. They were able to get some yardage, but weren't able to capitalize and get in the end zone. Like I said, the Ravens just ran the ball down their throat when they had it. So there was that. But again, they still have some things they need to work out. Like I said, their passing game was not great, and maybe Des Bryant would have been able to help with that. But one of the biggest stories from this game is the fact that he tested positive like right before kickoff, and just was like, and he wasn't allowed to play. Which, all right, but then like everybody else still played, which again is very wild when you think about it, because even if there wasn't any close contact today, like everybody was wearing their mask and being safe or whatever, like it's not like he didn't practice with the team leading up. It's not like he wasn't in meetings and in the locker room with the guys like before today. So it was very odd that like he tested positive, and also the timing of it, because according to him, he like was pulled aside pregame and was like, "Hey, take a test." Then the test came back positive. So I'm not gonna say Jerry, put out a call and was like, "Hey, could we not have Des Bryant show us out on national TV?" But the timing of it was all very, very peculiar. He himself thought it was very peculiar as well. Went on Twitter and had a nice little tweet storm about how he was a little bit confused on how he could test positive like right before the game, and yet the game still be played. And I think that's a very fair question, in my own personal opinion, because how does the game still get played if a guy tests positive right before, that was with the team before that? Like leading up into before that game, he was with the team, then they were just like, hey. And it's not like the Ravens haven't also had issues before. It's like they've had COVID run rampant through their building before, so you would think they'd be extra precautious, but apparently not. So that was something. But like I said, the game itself was not all that unsurprising. I mean, it was not all that surprising. The Ravens did what they had to do, came out with the dub. Cool. Going back to Monday, you had a little bit more of a surprise, and we'll start with the first game, the Steelers-Washington, because the football team was able to come out victorious, which is, again, much like the Seahawks and the Giants, is not something you would have predicted coming into the weekend. But, as is evidenced by, like, again, their recent play, these teams are getting better as the season goes on. Again, do they start out very rough? Yes. Are they still, like, in them and the Giants and Washington, are they still, like, kind of bad record-wise? Yes. But they're improving. And that's what you want to see at this point in the season. You want to see your team get better. And as you can see, both these teams are getting better, though it took some, you could argue, bad play from the Steelers. Because I said their offense was very interesting. I just want to say the least. Again, another game where they just didn't really run the ball, barely even tried to run the ball, only had 14 carries on the game for 21 yards. So again, it wasn't that effective, but also like you didn't really even try. Their running game was their short passing game, which is kind of how it's been most of the season. That's why Ben's getting the ball out of his hands so quickly this year, is because they're just running nice little 3-4 yard slants or drags or curls or outs or whatever. Just again, as an extension of the running game. Because if you get 4 yards a carry, you're getting a first down every 3 carries. So like I said, they're just doing that instead of just running the ball. But the issue is when you don't catch some of those balls that are being thrown to. Like I said, I think they had I don't know if I can't find it on ESPN, but like I said, I think they had 7, 8 drops in that game, something like that. It was a very high amount. Ebron dropped some. Deontay Johnson, I think, had another game where he dropped quite a few passes. So, like I said, and it doesn't not that it never happens, but I think Dan Orlowski or someone on NFL was making this point. But generally speaking, runs don't go all the time for negative yardage or losses. Or no gains or whatever, but if you pass and you don't catch it, that's a guaranteed no gain. You run, alright, even if somebody misses the block or gets in the backfield, the running back can make a guy miss, and instead of losing 3 or getting nothing, maybe you get 2 or 3 yards, something like that. Like I said, but when you run a quick drag route or a quick slant route and you drop it, now you just gain nothing. So like I said, the short passing game and everything works when it's working. Like I said, it works when you're catching the passes, when you're picking up positive yards play after play after play. But when you're not, then it causes drives to stall. It causes possessions to stall. And then, like I said, you only end up scoring 17 points. Not that Washington doesn't have a good defense, but like I said, I imagine the Steelers didn't come in expecting to only score 17. And then on the flip side, they were able to, Washington was able to move the ball pretty effectively, more or less throughout the game. They held Terry McLaurin down, which is great. But when you don't hold other people down, that's part of the problem. Like I said, Logan Thomas had 9 for 98 and a touchdown. Cam Sims had 5 for 92. J.D. McKissick had 10 receptions out of the backfield. So like I said, Terry McLaurin, did he have a good game? No, not at all. And that's what you go into the game against Washington planning to do. But the issue is that if you let the other guys do their thing and you get a little bit of pressure. Again, they got 3 sacks on Alex Smith, but again, later in the game, he was able to move the ball and get the team down the field. When that happens, then, like I said, you're going to end up losing some of these games. Like I said, this is a game that the Steelers led 14-3 at halftime, so you go into the halftime feeling pretty comfortable, feeling good. I was all right, just finish it out, do our thing in the second half, and then we'll be all right. But then Washington comes out, goes on a 14-play, 82-yard drive to open the half. With a touchdown by Peyton Barber after they got a defensive holding on I think it was on Terry. It was a little misdirection. He kind of ran in front of TJ Watt. TJ Watt grabbed him. On 4th and goal, they were going for it, and they didn't. And they obviously got the penalty. So then they got another play, and then they got the first down on that one. They got the touchdown on the next one. Then, like I said, there's some punts. They were able to make a field goal. The Steelers were, which I think they missed. Did they miss? I may even think of the recent game, because again, they've been playing games fairly recently. Like I said, they were able to get a field goal, and there was more punts, but then, and that was the thing, the Steelers, they're not supposed to be, Washington, all right, you expect them to punt, the Steelers are a good defense. Like I said, Steelers, you expect them to move the ball a little, but they were going, especially in the second half, they were going 5 plays, punt, field goal drive, 3 plays, punt, 9 plays, turnover on downs, then, like I said, the game effectively ended on an interception. Which we'll get to in a second, but like I said, after another one of the punt drives, the Washington got the football back. 8 plays, 53 yards, and a touchdown. This one was to Logan Thomas. Then the Steelers turned over on downs on 4th and 1. They throw an incomplete pass down the right sideline. They try to run a slant and go with McFarland as a linebacker. Granted, he was open, but also he was not the main guy. Like I said, he's with James Conner out, he's their 4th running back. How many times did he get that pass thrown to him in practice or whatever? Like I said, it was clearly the play was designed for him, which I get, but again, he's the shorter guy. I don't know. Not he's a bad receiver, but it's not like he's Alvin Kamara. It's not like he's Christian McCaffrey, one of these backs that is known for their great hands or whatever. At least not to my knowledge. Again, Steelers fans, please tell me if I'm wrong. Like I said, he had to kind of turn around, try to adjust to the ball instead of being led down the field. He wasn't able to catch it, and then like I said, that's 4th and 1. You're at the Washington 28. You could have kicked the field goal to go up 3. Be no, we're gonna go for it. All right, cool. But then, like I said, because you don't trust your running game, you pass it, you don't catch it, and now the Washington gets the ball back. They go 9 plays, 45 yards, kick a field goal. Dustin Hopkins made a 45-yarder. And then, like I said, you have the first play. interception that I'm pretty sure got tipped, and then Bostic made a nice little diving play on the ball. So shout out to him. And then the Washington was just able to basically bleed the clock because the Steelers only had one timeout left. And they kicked another field goal. And then, like I said, the time basically ran out on the Steelers. They weren't going to be able to make it that far. So, shout out to Washington for getting a big win, especially if they want to try to compete for the division, which it seems like they're doing. They need to keep pace with the Giants. And they were able to do that in winning against the Steelers. 72 Dolphins are celebrating. Dolphins fans everywhere are celebrating because now there's no more undefeated team. And the Chiefs are celebrating because now all the Steelers got to do is lose one more game. They keep winning, which not impossible. But again, as you've seen this weekend, crazy things can happen from time to time. And now they're the 1 seed instead of the Steelers. And so, like I said, that was a big loss for the Steelers, knowing that you're trying to hold off the Chiefs for the 1 seed to get that bye. And also knowing that coming up, you got the Bills on Sunday night, which isn't going to be an easy one. We'll talk about them in a second. You still got the Colts, you still got the Browns to play. So they got some playoff caliber teams they still got left on their schedule. So it's like, again, you can't really afford to be dropping one to Washington. But hey, it is what it is. That's what happened. And speaking of the Bills, Josh Allen, who we'll talk about more later as a potential, like I said, he's been a little, like, again, he was good, then he was kind of then now he's back being good again. And if he stays this good, especially with some of the teams they got coming up, he may talk himself. At least not. He's not going to win most likely unless Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. But like, he just talk himself into the MVP race. I don't want to give away the segment too much before we get there. But for the Bills, again, the Niners gave them a little bit. Again, they were down. They were down 17-7 at halftime. The Niners were. They came out strong though. Had the touchdown drive in the first quarter. Took the lead. But then from there, the rest of the game was mainly all Bills. And a lot of that was on the arm of Josh Allen. He was 32 of 40, 375 yards, 4 touchdowns. And it's clear as day that, hey, when you have you think you have a good young quarterback, get him a number 1 receiver. However, by whatever means. Whether that's via trade, via free agency, via the draft, whatever. Get him a number 1. It makes a world of difference. We're seeing it with Josh Allen. Obviously, we were seeing it with Kyler until he got a little bit banged up. But like I said, Stephon Diggs has been great for the team. And then, like, even with him, like, even though he had 10 for 92, which isn't bad. But again, not sensational, but it's allowed guys like Cole Beasley to have great years. He had 9 for 130 and touchdown in this one. He's having himself a really good year. Gabriel Davis has come on recently. He's caught a couple of touchdown passes in the last few games. Like I said, he's been coming on. John Brown when he was doing all right. Obviously, he's been banged up a little bit more. And again, the Brian Daboll is really coaching his way and coaching Josh Allen in a way that's going to lead him to get head coaching consideration, I think, this offseason. Because again, not just the way that he's improved Josh Allen, but he knows how to utilize his guys. I said even Isaiah McKenzie has done a bunch of interesting things and fun things this year. They've run plays for him, got him in motion, got a little pick going. He was a linebacker. He ran up the sideline for a touchdown pass. Like I said, their play calling's creative. And like I said, he turned Josh Allen into what many people didn't think he could be. I'm not saying people didn't think he was good. Obviously, he was drafted in the top 10. But people didn't think he could be what's he at, like 70%, somewhere around there, passer? 69.9 currently. Like I said, he was 52.8 and then 58.8 his first 2 years. Now he's at almost 70% completion percentage. Like, that's not something you thought Josh Allen was capable of. Now, as we talked about, Josh Allen still has Josh Allen moments where, like, he throws the ball where it's like, you don't need to do that, or he holds on to the ball too long, or, like, again, maybe he, like, fumbles trying to fight for extra yards, like, different things. Like, he still has those Josh Allen moments, but they're more contained, and then as a passer, he's much improved. Like I said, I don't know how much credit Brian Daboll deserves for that because I'm not in the building, but as you can see, the offense, even though it was pretty good last year, obviously Stephon Diggs makes it better. Like I said, the offense looks good and it looks creative and it looks fun and you can tell it's built to maximize the potential of Josh Allen, of Stephon Diggs, of Cole Beasley, the running game's the only really shaky part of it. And like I said, it's done good and that's what you want to see. And like I said, on the flip side, shout out to the Niners. Like, again, they're doing what they're trying to do. Nick Mullins did what Nick Mullins does. He's going to throw some touchdowns, throw some interceptions. Like I said, that's just kind of how it is. Brandon Ayuk had himself a good game. 5 for 95 and a touchdown. Fred Warner was all over the place. But again, only so much you can do when the pass rush is non-existent. only had 1 sack on the day and only 3 quarterback hits on the day. So like I said, that you're not going to beat many teams with getting that little pressure on the quarterback. But yeah, like I said, the Niners aren't gonna. This was an interesting one for them because they get back 6-6. They're still in the mix of things in the NFC potentially. Like I said, they're getting healthier on defense, but like with Nick Mullins out there, you're limited as an offense. Like it is what it is. Like you're a limited team. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of where you're at. It's like I said, you never really expect them to do much, but again, after the Rams game, you never knew. But the Bills are a very solid team. Clearly one of the best teams in the AFC, and they will have a chance to show that once again coming up these next 4 weeks. They have a game, like I said, they got the Sunday night game against the Steelers. That'll be a big one. They got a game against the Patriots and the Dolphins to end the season as well, to try to cement themselves as the cream of the crop in the AFC East. So like I said, Josh Allen and the team are going to have some chances to showcase themselves over these last 4 games. So we'll see what they're able to do as the season finishes out. So we talked about, like I said, surprise wins from Washington and from the Giants this past weekend. So with that, I thought it'd be interesting to look at who I think has the best chance. Again, I'm not going to say who is or isn't, but who I think has the best chance of winning the NFC East currently. I believe it's a 2-team race at this point, with the Cowboys being the Cowboys and the Eagles being the Eagles. And we'll talk about them in a little bit too. But like I said, in the next segment we'll talk about who I think has the best chance to win the NFC East. So we'll talk about that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast. So, Giants versus the football team. Just where everyone thought the division would be at this point in the season coming in. Like I said, yeah, everybody had the Giants and Washington fighting it out over the last 4 weeks to see who could make it into the playoffs and host a playoff game against a team that is going to be clearly better than them on paper. But again, you never know, depending on how they're playing. And seeing as I think right now the Giants would play the Seattle again in New York, so again, no guarantee with that. But like I said, that's what it's shaping up to be, because the Cowboys are where they're at right now. Both offensively, they're kind of just like they've been or maybe even worse than since Dak got hurt, which again is what you expect. Andy Dalton is a backup for a reason. And he was out for a couple of weeks. They had Ben DiNucci and Garrett Gilbert and different guys in there. Offense has not looked that great. And then defense has been atrocious. I can't really say much else about it other than it's been atrocious. Like from start to finish, from week 1 to today, it's been bad. Darn near every game, it's been terrible. Like I said, the points may not always reflect it, but in terms of like yardage and usually the points reflect it. But like I said, and like yards and like everything they give up, it's been bad. And then obviously they had injuries off the line and stuff. So the offense has some excuses. The defense, the guys they have out there are generally the guys that were supposed to be out there. They're just not playing that well. Or like I said, some of the guys that they thought were going to play well, they end up getting cut or traded or whatever. And that's kind of what the only really guy that's injured. I mean, they had some corners injured early, but then the one that's injured now, I think, is Trayvon Davis. I know he's been out, or he's going to be out for a little bit longer, I believe. I know he was supposed to be out 4 to 6 weeks whenever he initially got hurt. But like I said, Jalen Smith, Van Der Esch are in there. DeMarcus Lawrence is in there. I believe Aldon Smith is still not hurt. Like, I didn't really see him much in the game today, but like I know he was playing before this. Like I said, Xavier Woods is back. They got like Jordan Lewis. I thought Bouzier was back. I thought Anthony Brown was back. Yeah, they got Thompson and like the Donovan Wilson, I believe, guy back in. Like, so they have the guys they thought were going to be something this year playing more or less right now. They've just been bad on defense. So, again, not technically, but like Giants, Eagles, they're both out of it. In my personal opinion. I think I said Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, both out of it. At this point, like, again, it's between Washington and the Giants, especially the way both teams are playing right now as opposed to the other two teams. Like, those two teams are going down. They're fighting for a top 5 pick. That Week 16 game is going to be a must lose. For both sides, because like I said, that could be for the number 4 pick in the draft. So that would be kind of big. And like I said, the Giants and Washington are ascending. So like I said, that's where you kind of want to be at right now. So looking forward, when you project forward into these last 4 games, for both squads, you have the Giants, who I believe have the tougher schedule moving forward, if I remember correctly. They play the Cardinals this week, who, I mean, they've been a little shaky the last few weeks. I believe what they have lost now 3 in a row since beating the Bills on the Hail Mary. Though, obviously, some of that coincides with Kyler Murray getting a little bit banged up. But they play the Giants next week, who, like I said, just came back, or are going to be fresh off a win against Seattle, in Seattle, which is always a tough place to play, even with no fans. So they got them, which isn't an easy game, but like I said, not exactly as hard as it was on paper before. But then they have the Browns, who can clearly run the ball. That's going to be a big deal, but also no Odell revenge games. So I don't got to worry about that. Then they got the Ravens. So back-to-back AFC North teams. And then they finish off with the Cowboys, who, I mean, at that point they'll be playing to maybe try to ruin the Giants season, but like their season will be all but over. Like, who knows how hard they'll be playing at that point. They might already be on, I know this is basketball, they usually say it's in basketball, they might already be on 1, 2, 3 Cancun watch. Like I said, their defense shows a lack of effort now, and or has been showing a lack of effort most of the year. So like I said, what it would be like in Week 17, hard to say. Like I said, fringe playoff team, the Cardinals, and then 2 legitimate playoff contenders in the Ravens, who obviously aren't in the playoffs right now, and the Browns, who are. So like I said, that's a tough little stretch of games you got there. But then on the Washington side of things, they play the Niners coming up. And get Nick Mullins, who, I mean, that's not the hardest test. Then they play Seattle, who, again, Seattle always plays some weird games. They play games relatively close. That defense is solid. They play the Panthers, who aren't really that good right now. Again, maybe McCaffrey will be back. We'll see what happens with their COVID situation that just happened this week. Though that game's not for a couple weeks, so you would think those guys would be back then, but you never really know how it'll go. And then they finish off the season with the Eagles, who they beat in Week 1. Again, another situation where you don't really know where the Eagles would be at. Again, they haven't necessarily given up on the season, at least play-wise. Like some of the guys still seem to try to give effort, and also we won't know what the team will look like with Jalen Hurts in there, which like I said, we'll talk about in a couple segments. But like I said, their last 4 are against 3 losing teams and the Seahawks, who are probably not as good as their 8-4 record says they are, but also, like, again, they're not a bad team. So it's 3 losing teams, and then the Seahawks, who just lost to the Giants. Though the Giants did beat Washington twice, which is basically the difference in the division right now. They said they just split with them, then Washington would be 6-6, and they'd be leading in division. But like I said, they lost close twice. While like I said, the Giants have the Cardinals, the Browns, the Ravens, and then the Cowboys. So, like I said, I feel because it's hard to say because, again, you thought the Seahawks were going to be a tough game for the Giants. So you're like, oh, they got the tougher schedule. But, like I said, they may be, if they're the better team, that doesn't really matter. But like I said, when you look at them, the keys to both of these will be their defenses. Like I said, in terms of yardage, Washington's a top 5 defense, and the Giants are like top 10, 11 right now in terms of yards. In terms of passing yards, I know Washington's definitely up there. Yeah, they're the 3rd best team in terms of yards per game. And while the Giants are a little bit further down because their cornerback 2 situation is not great. James Bradbury, though, is great, but like the rest of them are not that great. They're like more middle of the pack. in that regard. And then also like running the ball, but again, running the ball is a weird one because, like I said, normally the bad teams or the lower teams are some of the teams that are winning a lot because then your teams are trying to throw on you. But the Giants are top 5 in run defense in terms of yards, and the Washington is like around the top 10. This is both defenses are solid, and then in terms of points per game, they're, I think, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 8 and 9 in terms of points per game on defense. So like I said, that's where this division will be decided, is on the defense side of the ball, because both offenses have clear and obvious limitations. Like I said, the Washington has like a lack of playmakers outside of Terry McLaurin, and we'll see what happens with Antonio Gibson and his foot thing, because obviously without him in there, that hurts their weapons even more. Like, he was probably their, like, yeah, I would say he's their second best offensive player, in my own personal opinion. So like I said, that would be a big issue for me. If he's out, like that significantly hurts their chances. Because again, the offense is going to be extremely limited. Because again, he can run the ball, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, like he can do a whole lot, as we saw in that Thanksgiving Day game. And I don't know if Peyton Barber and J.D. McKissick can completely fill in for him, though. They were able to do a decent enough job against the Steelers. Like I said, I don't know if you can count on Logan Thomas or Cam Sims to do what they did every week. But I'm going to do what they did this week every week. But again, you don't know. And the one good thing they have in there is they have a vet in Alex Smith, who's been there before, played in late season games, played in playoff games, played in games down the stretch that mattered. So like I said, that's another thing they have over the Giants, because while Daniel Jones is, I think he's still going to be out this week with the hamstring, and Colt McCoy's going to be in there. So I mean, Colt McCoy's been around, but he's not really played in that many meaningful games, and if he has, it's been a while since it happened. But one thing on Jones is back, he hasn't really played in these type of games. They were bad last year. Then most of the year this year when he was playing, they were bad. So he hasn't played in really a meaningful game before. So like I said, that could be an interesting thing, an interesting dynamic. Obviously, Ron Rivera's been there before in terms of a coach. Like, he's been to a Super Bowl, coached in the playoffs, things like that. Joe Judge, he's been on this Patriots staff that's obviously very successful, but he hasn't done it himself. So you got to see how they handle that down the stretch. But yeah. And then, like I said, going back to the Giants, just on their offensive side of the ball, again, their guys have been playing better, but like without, like I was just Saquon's been gone for a while, but like no one on their team like really scares you. Like Gallman ran the ball well this past week, and like they've had guys play well. Like Slayton's had it was pretty solid. Like Golden Tate's had his moments, Sterling Shepard had his moments, Evan Ingram has his moments when he's not dropping the ball. So like I said, they've been solid. Their offensive line has gotten better. And obviously the defense has been much improved. Leonard Williams and those guys have really helped solidify their defense. And obviously they got James Bradbury out there. Like I said, locked down one side of the field. So, like I said, it's a tough situation where like it's hard to say because both these teams have their limitations. Obviously, that's why both of them are 5 and 7. But you would say that maybe the Washington has a little bit better defense, have a little bit better front seven for sure. And then, like I said, the pass defense is a little bit better, at least in terms of yards per game given up. And like I said, they have more experience at the quarterback position down the stretch, which is doesn't mean everything, but it's important. And also have the easier schedule. Like I said, if you're playing better, then having the worst teams helps. I would argue down the stretch. And like I said, the Giants are playing better, but they got to face the Cardinals, who, like I said, aren't a great team, but aren't a bad team. Then they got to face the Browns, they got to face the Ravens. Like Browns and Ravens are two legitimately solid teams. Like I said, the best team Washington faces in their last 4 games is the Seahawks. And the Seahawks just lost to the Giants at home. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but like again, they're not a team that's like that can't be beat. Obviously, they're 8 and 4. Like I said, they've lost games, and they're normally in close games. So it's not like they're gonna just come in, generally speaking, just blow you out of the water. Like that doesn't normally happen. It's not how normally Seattle handles their business. Like I said, because of that, like hey, look, they've been in close games. Like they were in a close game with the Steelers. Obviously, they lost some close games to the Giants and things like that. But they've been in close games throughout the year, and the one thing they can count on is that front 4, that front 7, and Seattle is not like they're known for having the best offensive line. Again, obviously, Russell Wilson can run around and do some things, and I don't know who they're going to have to cover DK and things like that. But, like, if they can get some pressure, like the Giants are able to get some pressure after Russ, they can make life difficult for the Seahawks. So, like I said, if I had to pick a team, I would probably go Washington going forward, just because, again, easier schedule and more experience in terms of late game and a playoff push and just playoff experience in general. So, like, they kind of know what to expect, and they can kind of help rally the guys to make sure that everybody's focused and everybody understands the importance of this last month of the season. But, like I said, either way, it would not surprise me if either of these teams won. So, like I said, it would not surprise me at all if the Giants, again, if they continue to play well. Like, if they keep playing well and they keep playing the way they've been playing, then it wouldn't shock me if they beat the Cardinals this weekend. It wouldn't shock me if they beat one of the Browns or probably the Browns. But either the Browns, because obviously the Browns are better than the Ravens, but either the Browns or the Ravens, neither of that would surprise me. Again, they beat the Cardinals in Seattle. They should have beaten the Buccaneers. You could argue, like I said, they had a close game with the Rams early in the year. They had a game if, like, Daniel Jones doesn't turn the ball over in the red zone. They could have beaten the Steelers week 1. Like, again, a lot of their losses are, I mean, again, you could say this about a lot of teams, but he's going through the last, like, 5, 6, 7 games. Even the loss to the Eagles before the bye, that was a game they should have won. So, like, you could legitimately argue that they could be on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like a 7-game winning streak. You could argue that. It wouldn't be that far-fetched. Again, they could have easily beaten the Bucs if Daniel Jones get a deep pass, and they could have beaten the Eagles if, like, they just play a little bit better defense the last 2 drives. As like I said, we're talking about the Giants potentially being on a 7-game streak right now heading into, like, the final stretch of the season, which is, so like I said, they're playing great. Washington is not playing that level of good, but they're obviously improving. They've won, I think, 3 in a row, 4 in a row, something like that. Yeah, they've won 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, they've won 3 in a row. They lost the Lions, that was a bad one. But I said they've won 3 in a row. So like I said, they're both playing better at the right time. Like I said, just the Washington having a little bit easier of a schedule, I feel like could be the difference in the division. Though, like I said, since the Giants beat them both times, they need to be a game clear of them to get the division. Like I said, the Giants would get in and on a tiebreaker. That's why they're in the lead right now, because of the tiebreaker they have over them. So like I said, the Washington needs to be a game clear of the Giants. So like I said, they need to hope that the Cardinals or the Browns or the Ravens show up to play when they play them in these next 3 weeks, so that they can, like, again, get a game up. Like I said, if both teams keep winning, then Washington will be kicking itself for not being able to pull out one of those 2 games against the Giants. So like I said, we'll see how it all plays out. It'll be interesting to watch it again. Not exactly what we expected to coming into the season with either of these 2 teams. And hey, who knows? Maybe Jalen Hurts pulls a Nick Foles and turns the Eagles season around. I doubt it, because the offense is just so bad right now. At least, like with Nick Foles, the offense was, like, playing well, relatively speaking. This offense, not playing well at all. But again, I digress. We'll get into that more when we get into the Hurts segment. But like I said, I think I would go Washington just because of the schedule. But like I said, you could argue the Giants are playing some of the best football in the league right now. Like, legitimately, they could be on a 7-game winning streak, which is crazy to say because it's the Giants, but, like, they could be on a 7-game winning streak right now. Like, and that's not far-fetched. They're 5-2 in their last 7 games. So, like I said, we'll kind of see. Like I said, it'll be interesting month of December in the NFC East, to say the least. So, after this next break, we will come back here and discuss more drama in Houston. Harden showed up, so there's that. They got him to show up in the building, get his COVID test and stuff. But, like, also he still wants to be traded, and I don't know if he was going about it the right way, but we'll see. And also we'll have to see if they even let him play, because they shouldn't let him play. But we'll talk about all that stuff after this break, so stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, James Harden. Apparently, well, two things. One, he's back in Houston. Apparently. He should have to show up to the Toyota Center for his COVID test today. Oh, today being Tuesday, obviously. I believe don't they have like not regular season, but don't they have like preseason games on Friday? Yeah, the Rockets play on Friday. So, I mean, there's no way he can play, right? Like, we'll get to the other stuff and the trade and all those other things for a second, but like, just for starters, like, he can't play on Saturday, right? I mean, Friday, right? Like, there's no logical way that the game is going to be like, you know what? We saw you on video hanging out in Atlanta with little baby, no mask, in the pandemic. But now that we're going to let you back in the building, we're going to allow you to play preseason game, mind you, but still play a game with other NBA players and coaches and stuff involved. Like, there's no logical way they could allow it to happen, right? Because if they do, it shows me what kind of season it's going to be. Like, they're going to be skating and skirting and doing whatever around the rules, just like everybody else. Like I said, the NBA was, well, not just the NBA, but like sports or leagues like the NBA and the NHL and MLS and WNBA and the NWSL. I believe that's the order of the letters. I said all the sports were forward thinking in their bubble design. Now, if you just turn into the MLB or the NFL, like, again, obviously doesn't take away what you did with the bubble because that was still great, but then just make you like everybody else. And like I said, I thought that's what the NBA was trying to do with the bubble, just trying to say like, hey, there's a way to do this better and safely and whatever, or there's a way to do this for money. And like I said, this way, and like I said, the flaunting and skirting of the rules and things like that, which I'm not saying they're going to do, but like I said, if you let a player that you saw out in a public place, very clear, high risk, very clearly no mask, and then just let him back in the building, like, that just tells them what kind of season it's going to be. Like, people are going to be doing, not going to say they're going to be doing whatever, just like to try to get, try to test positive, things like that, but again, there are going to be a lot of positive cases because people, like I said, don't really feel the weight of like, hey, if I'm out here, like, I could test positive and then I could bring it back here, or like I said, I could be asymptomatic or whatever and still, and whatever, like I said, it could all go down in that way. Like I said, you guys get the point. Like I said, I am kind of curious to see how that was handled because again, when Lou Will left the bubble, for a family thing, and then we're just seen spotted at Magic City with the mask on, mind you, when also COVID was a lot better. I mean, it wasn't like great, but like in June, July, it was a lot better than it is now, which is again quite wild to think about. And it's only gotten worse, mainly because Americans just stopped caring. But that's a different conversation for a different podcast. Like I said, when Lou Will did that, he was gone for 10 days. Daniel House, who still plays for Rockets? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he still plays for the Rockets. Got kicked out the bubble because he allegedly brought a person back to his room. So like I said, they cared before, but now I'm saying, now that they're just out and about having a season as if nothing's going on. Again, there's still protocols and things in place, but having a season more normal. Like I said, if they allow Harden to play on Friday, and again, it's preseason. Like, this game does not matter. Like I said, he can't be back in the building. Even if he tests positive, like his COVID just comes back negative from Tuesday. He can't be back in the building tomorrow. He got to test positive at least like 5 times before I know for certain. There's no way. Like I said, Lou had to quarantine for 10 days for just being spotted in Magic City. Not that he was around anybody. Obviously, he didn't test positive during his quarantine period, nothing like that. Like I said, there's like Harden back in there. I know exactly what kind of season this is going to be. I know exactly. So like I said, we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah, so back to the basketball side of things. And that is apparently James Harden still wanting to be traded. He indicated to the Rockets before training camp that he would be open to a trade to the Sixers or other possible contenders. Sources told ESPN, this is a report coming out earlier Tuesday. Harden, the MVP candidate, took a coronavirus test at the Toyota Center on Tuesday as part of the league's protocol to return to play. Rockets coach Steven Silas said once cleared to return, the next step would be for Harden to join the Rockets training camp, which started on the weekend without him. Obviously, he famously missed it and said he was going to show up and then didn't. So there's that. And that's basically all that we know right now. Supposedly, it's also reported that he wanted a trade to the Nets, to pair up with old Thunder teammate Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Apparently, after it was clear that wasn't going to happen, which makes sense. We'll talk about that in a second. Harden expressed to the Rockets that he would be agreeable if a trade with the Sixers materialized, sources said. Harden also indicated that other teams could fit his criteria for a preferred destination. The Rockets and the Sixers have had no substantive talks about a potential Harden deal. Sources said new Sixers president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey, was the Rockets GM for 13 years. And said he has no intention to break up Embiid and Ben Simmons, which in theory makes a lot of sense because they're both relatively young and good. And you also kind of want to give it a chance, give him one more season just to see if this really doesn't work. And then, like I said, you got in shooting, you got in Danny Green, you got in Seth Curry, drafted some good players, got rid of Al Horford. So in theory, the spacing should be better, the shooting should be better. So like I said, if things don't work out this year, then all right, okay, maybe we can talk about blowing it up. But like I said, you probably don't want to blow it up a year too early before you really know that, hey, this doesn't work. Now, if you know this doesn't work, then all right, cool, yeah. Then blow it up. Like I said, I don't know if they've reached that point just yet with these two. Like I said, back to the Harden thing. For one, this is an interesting way to go about a trade. Because like I said, this is not normally how you, like I said, it's not really like holdouts or things like that in the NBA. That's not just like a common thing that happens. Like NFL, yeah. Like that's commonplace. People hold out for like trades or extensions or things like that. Like that's not a thing NBA players really do. And obviously that's not necessarily what he's doing because he did show up. But again, just being like, I'm not showing up for the start of training camp because I need to be at little baby's birthday party is very interesting to say the least. Especially after, again, reports were over the summer, or I guess a little while ago, that he wanted to be traded. So like I said, I don't know if that was a business tactic, a business move, though apparently he doesn't have an agent, which is interesting. When you think about all this stuff. Though, again, I'm not saying the agent would have advised him what to do or what not to do, but I imagine he would have advised him not to go to little baby's birthday, because we're still in a pandemic and you got to start the season. So there is that. But, like I said, the Harden trade is, one, going to be hard to materialize, and two, I don't know if this is the best way to go about it. Like I said, it all kind of depends. Like I said, if you feel like the organization not operating in good faith, then understandably so, maybe you won't operate in good faith back. Like I said, if you didn't like the way they handled the transition of power from Morey to the next guy, or didn't like the way they acquired the coach when you feel like you should have been part of the, not to say it's the selection process, but at least, run some things by me and say like, hey, how do you feel about this guy or that guy or whatever? And same for coach and GM. That's not good. And then obviously you have no problem at all being like, hey, Russ, you don't want to be here? Cool. We'll trade you. We'll get somebody else. Now it's somebody else with John Wall, who, again, you trade Russ, who was bad towards the end of the year, well, in the bubble, and can't shoot. Cool. For John Wall, who hasn't really played a game in 2 seasons and don't know at all what he looks like. And also, he couldn't shoot before he stopped playing. So I don't know to say that it's gotten better. And we kind of, again, just got to see how the Achilles holds up because no one's really come back from 2 Achilles tears. I don't even know, just talking about basketball, I don't even know anybody, like, many athletes, period, that tear an Achilles twice. Especially, I think it was the same Achilles, so that's even, like, a double win. Like, some guys, like, tear, I know Brandon Brooks for the Eagles, he tore his one Achilles, came back, was good last year, and then this offseason tore his other Achilles. So, like I said, that's different Achilles, so it's not exactly the same. But like I said, he's been gone for 2 years. You have no idea what John Wall's going to look like for a game, let alone for the entirety of a season. At least you know what Russ is. Like, he's an all-NBA caliber point guard. And you know that for a fact. So like I said, I don't know how he feels about that. And And like I said, if both of them wanted out of here, all right, then you get one of them out here, but you're like, we're not leaving. You're going to stay here. And not to say rot, because obviously he said he wanted to go somewhere where he could win, which is a very ringing indictment on Steven Silas and John Wall to a degree. If he says he wanted to be traded to a contender, because he clearly thinks that the Rockets, as currently constructed in the West, are not contenders. You could argue, if this is all alleged, I'm not James Harden. I don't know what he thinks. I have no sources, so I can't say anything definitively. But according to reports out there and rumors, that this is what he wanted, or this is what he claimed. And so like I said, I don't know if like not showing up for work is the best way to get traded, but it's definitely an interesting way. Like I said, we'll see if it works out for him. Or like I said, I imagine they'll give it some time. Like they're not going to trade him right now. Like I believe Steven Silas or something. Before they said they were fine with getting uncomfortable. So being like, hey, I don't want to be here, but like also I have to show up for work, so I don't get fined. But I don't think that's again, I don't think it's the thing they do in the NBA really. Or maybe they do, but it just doesn't happen often enough for me to know for certain. And I said, if they were going to do something like that, but again, he got a lot of money, so he probably could afford the fine. But regardless, people don't like losing money. Rich, poor, middle class, no one likes losing money. So like I said, maybe that would get him to show up a little bit more. So like I said, I don't think the Rockets are ever going to do anything, or well, not I'm going to say they're never going to do anything. They may do something eventually, but I don't think they'll do anything before the start of the season. Because like I said, you don't just trade the franchise player just because he says he wants to be traded. Now, if you find a good trade for him, that's a different story. But you're not going to be like, he's not going to be like, I want to get traded. And you're just like, yeah, sure. Here you go. Like, unless again, it's a Russell Westbrook situation where you were clearly like trying to break down the team. Like once Paul George was like, I'm out, I want to team up with Kawhi. And then blame everybody else but myself for our lack of success this year. So if you want to do that, then all right, Russ comes to you like, hey, look, we're not going to be that good this year. Here, let me let you go play with your boy. Like that's a different scenario with the franchise player. But again, they came to him and knew that. Like I said, Harden's basically just like, we're not good enough. I'm done here. On top of the fact, again, maybe he has some issues with the people in upper management. And then the Rockets are like, well, we don't want to be sorry because we have none of our draft picks moving forward. So yeah, let's not do that. Just like I said, if they're ever going to trade him, I do believe the Sixers probably make the most sense. I understand why he'd want to play in Brooklyn, but also like I don't know if Karis LeVert as the main piece is enough for me to give up James Harden unless you're getting a lot of first round picks back. Which I mean the Nets could give up, but they already did this once. I don't believe Sean Marks is going to be foolish enough to do a Billy King-esque trade. Again, obviously it's different because James Harden isn't past his prime right now, as KG and Paul Pierce debatably were when they traded for them. So like I said, it's a different scenario. And then for Anderson, they did make the playoffs, but after that, obviously, they were sorry. And it's taken them a while to get not sorry, but they're finally there now. In theory, at least. We'll see what happens. But I said, I understand why I'd want to go to the Nets, but also, like I said, I don't think the Nets have the package from, if I'm the Rockets, I would want for a guy of James Harden's caliber. So that's also why the Sixers make sense, because the Sixers, in theory, would give up Ben Simmons. And that's at least something I could start to deal with. Again, I'm not saying I'm going to give up Harden for Ben Simmons and some auxiliary pieces, but like I said, in terms of like the teams he may want to go to, you're probably going to get a player better than Ben Simmons, unless you get Embiid, but they wouldn't. That having Harden and Simmons doesn't make any sense. With no Embiid, it makes absolutely zero sense. So like I said, they're not going to trade Embiid. Like if you're going to trade one of them, you're going to trade Simmons, obviously. At least I think I wouldn't trade Simmons. Again, 6'10", can handle the ball. If he gets a jump shot, that'd be great. But also all defensive caliber player, like that great facilitator. Like there's not that many guys like that in the world. Or not that many guys that play basketball, period, that can do some of the things he can do at 6'10". Obviously, Embiid is great in his own right, but again, it's a big man, more of a down-low big man. Again, he can step out to three, but that's not really his game. But again, he can do it. And like I said, at least the way in which basketball is moving and transforming into more positionless, Ben Simmons seems like the guy you kind of want to do that. So, like I said, I wouldn't trade Ben Simmons, but I do believe I'm the Rockets. If Ben Simmons is a guy I could get for James Harden, all right, now we're talking. Now you're speaking my language. Like I said, I wouldn't do it, and I don't think they're going to do it. Especially, like I said, unless things go terribly wrong in Philly to begin the season, then, like, all right, maybe. But, like, assuming things don't go that badly, I don't think they would do something like that. Something that drastic. At least in my personal opinion. Again, we'll see how it goes. And Houston-wise, I think, like, it could get bad very quickly. Like, if it's a bad first month, it might be like a Jimmy Butler situation where they just like, you know what, it's not worth it. Different scenarios, obviously, because Jimmy Butler wasn't there that long with the Wolves. But, like, again, it's just like, you know what, not worth it. Let's just get him out of here. Not worth it. Like, this is not going to work. Like, him being unhappy is not going to work. It's going to mess up the vibe of the team. So, again, we'll kind of see if James Harden's strategy works and he does get traded, or what the situation is, or when he plays, or when he's able to report and be around his other teammates and, like, play and stuff like that in preseason games. But at least he showed up. There is that. At least he did show up today. So that is cool. So like I said, that's a step in the right direction to get him back out on the court. So again, we'll kind of see how that goes from there. So speaking of drama in Houston, there is now drama in Philly as Jalen Hurts has officially been named the starting quarterback for this upcoming weekend's game against the New Orleans Saints, which is going to be a disaster. But we will talk about that, talk about the switch, talk about what it means for the Eagles, long-term, short-term, talk about what it means for Jalen Hurts, talk about what it means for Carson Wentz, everything, like I said, everything involved with all of that we will discuss right after the break. So stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, Jalen Hurts now officially, as we said before the break, will be the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles at least through this week. But I mean, we'll talk about all that and like what like he'll have to start for the whole season or whatever. For the rest of the season, I should say. But he's at least starting this next game against the Saints. At least this is according to the coach. So, like I said, it is official. Before it was just mere speculation after Sunday's game or whatever. But now we know officially he will be the starting quarterback. Carson Wentz, who's supposed to be the franchise quarterback, who's paid as the franchise quarterback, will now be the backup to Jalen Hurts. And part of the reason why is because Peterson said the offense is not where they want to be, according to a statement he put out. And he said he looked at the whole thing and decided that for this week to look for that spark again that he talked about after the game with Jalen Hurts. He's like, hey, we wanted to get a little bit of spark in there to let him, to see if we could, bring some life back into the offense, things like that. So they're going to try that again to get the team over the hump and try to get everybody playing better. Now, in terms of why Wentz was benched, this is just all, QBR. So because, I'm on ESPN. So, QBR. And this is out of 34 total quarterbacks with 150 passes, according to ESPN stats and information. Wentz was 28th overall, 28th on third down, 29th versus man coverage, 30th versus zone coverage, 32nd when blitzed, and dead last when it came to play action, because the Eagles' play action game is a disaster. Partly his fault, partly other, partly design, scheme, execution, things like that, but long story short, There wasn't really much to hold on to about why Carson should still be the starting quarterback, at least for this season. Again, moving forward, we'll talk about that. But for this season, there was really no logical explanation for it. On top of the fact that, obviously, when Hurts came in, the offense moved the ball a little bit better. Could have scored in that first drive, not for that holding call. I think it was either on Salem Miley or Kelsey, and brought back the Boston Scott run. And then obviously they end up scoring a touchdown later. They had a chance to drive and tie the game up after the Rager punt return. But then obviously they did what the Eagles do, and that's normally go 3 and out and have to punt. And then obviously the defense gave up the 7-yard run, and it was all but over. But yeah, you could clearly see that once Hurts came in, even though they didn't come back and win, even though they obviously lost the game as they would have if Wentz stayed in, the energy shifted. And I believe that's what they're trying to find again, is this shift in energy. Now, if you followed the Eagles before, you know that this is not a new thing or a new phenomenon. A lot of people said that the team responded better or played better previously when Nick Foles came in for Wentz. And, it's debatable because that 2018 season, at the end, again, part of it was the defense got healthy, but then, like I said, they played better. The defensive side of the ball played better. Offense executed a little bit better, things like that. And again, if Alshon doesn't drop the pass against the Saints, maybe they go on to go to an NFC Championship game, maybe back-to-back Super Bowls, and then maybe Nick Foles is starting quarterback instead of Carson Wentz, and who knows what happens from there. He might have still been bad, as he has been post-Eagles. Or maybe he's just only good on the Eagles. It's a very hard concept. Nick Foles is a very hard player to understand at all, because he's basically been bad everywhere but with Philadelphia. That's literally been his career. Is bad but good in Philadelphia under 2 different coaches. Very strange. But regardless, so like I said, that's an interesting dynamic, and as I said, that's what they're trying to go for. And I'm not gonna say it's probably not gonna work because the Saints are a very good team, so it's not really gonna matter. But like I said, if you just see more out of Rager, if you see more out of Fulgham, if you see more out of, not Goddard, because he's been playing well recently, but Ertz is just getting back to see more out of him, see more out of Miles and Boston Scott in the run game, see more out of the run game itself, with Jalen Hurts now occupying and causing eyes to look at him when he's going around, whereas the curse is when it comes to Wentz, people aren't really, he can run the ball, obviously, but they're not looking at him in the same way. And then, I don't know, maybe because the defense is out on the field less, maybe they play a little bit better, or maybe, like I said, the special teams is more energized. I don't know. I don't know exactly how it's going to look. I don't know exactly what the spark is per se. Obviously, I know why he's looking for that spark, but like I said, I don't know what the spark is that he's looking for. Like I said, is it on the offense? Is it on the defense? Is it on the team as a whole? Is it on the offensive huddle? Again, I don't know exactly what in what area or in what way he was looking for Jalen Hurts to spark the team. But again, that's the decision that was made, and that's what they're going to go forward with. Now, I will say that in theory, if you cared about a spark, this move should have been done 2 weeks ago. If you cared about getting a spark and trying to salvage the season or again get things going in the right direction, then you would think that you would do this before the last month when now Washington and the Giants are playing better, so you're almost all but out of the division. And like I said, that was going to be, that was the problem for a while for them, is that even when they were playing poorly, this game didn't matter because they're still leading the division. This game didn't matter because they're still leading the division. Now they're not leading the division anymore, and them losing games actually does matter. And now they gotta realize, hey, maybe we shouldn't keep trotting Wentz out there to keep getting hit, because he doesn't trust his O-line, doesn't trust his receivers, and doesn't trust his eyes, and can't manage the pocket that well. And because he's getting hit all the time, he's feeling ghosts and seeing ghosts, and he's not really always throwing the ball accurately, even when he's clean. And that's one of the biggest stories. I think even his numbers from a clean pocket are really bad. So I guess that tells you that's clearly something that there's a quarterback that's broken in some way. When now, even when he gets good protection, he gets time, there's guys open, he still can't consistently hit them. That's clearly a quarterback that's not all the way right, mentally, physically, or in whatever way. He's not all the way there. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of where we are at this point with Carson Wentz. This season, again, maybe not going forward, but for this season, yeah, that's where we're at. As I said, so that is unfortunate. Like I said, if Doug and Howie or whoever's involved in making the decision, apparently Doug claims it's him, then you make this move 2 weeks ago. Like, what do you get out of throwing Jalen Hurts in there for his first real starter action, not his first prolonged action, because that was against the Packers, but his first real action against the Saints and arguably the best team in the NFC, against a defense that's been playing great recently. You understand? It's at home. But like I said, if you really cared about, like, hey, maybe we can try to save our season, and why not do this? And against, I don't know, the Seahawks 2 weeks ago I'm granted it's like Monday night, but again, you're at home. You had an extra day. The Seahawks are on a defense that's they've been playing better recently, but not as good as the Saints. So I said, all right, maybe you do it then. Or maybe you weren't going to do it after the bye because they had won 2 straight and they were kind of feeling good about themselves. And like I said, but after you came out of the bye and things looked just as bad, if not worse, than they did before the bye, maybe that was the key to be like, hey, maybe we should try something else. But nope, they held on 2 weeks too long, and now they're going to start Jalen Hurts against the Saints, which again is going to be objectively a disaster, most likely. And then the rest of the games will be fine because the Cardinals, Dallas, and then Washington to end the season. That'll be a tough one. But the Cardinals aren't really, they're trending downward, and Dallas is Dallas. Where they're not good right now. So like I said, if you really cared about maximizing Jalen Hurts and potentially maximizing the season, getting the most out of the season, you wouldn't have stuck with Carson for this long. So that's problem number one. Like, you're not setting up the guy for potential success when you throw him in there against the best team in the league, or best team in the conference, not best team in the league, best team in the conference, maybe the second best team in the league, depending on who you ask. Like I said, doesn't really seem like you want to set the guy up for success. Granted, again, rookies get thrown in tough situations, but don't throw him in there against the best team he's going to play. So we'll see what happens. But that didn't seem like all that bright. So like I said, the short term, it makes sense for them to go to Hurts because, again, you just want to see what you have in the second round rookie because you might have a top 5 pick. I don't think they can't really afford to draft a quarterback because Wentz is still probably going to be on the roster and they just drafted Hurts. But, like you said, if something happens and like Justin Fields ends up to where you could get him, all right, maybe you got to think about it. So I said you want to get Hurts out there to see what you have in him because you know what Carson is and you know what he is, especially you know what he is this year, and that's not good. So short term, it makes sense. Like I said, short term for Carson, it doesn't it's not working this year. Like, he's not right. The offense isn't right. The team isn't right. Like, there's no reason to just keep trotting him out there, to keep getting hit, to keep missing throws, he didn't turn the ball over before he got benched. But, like I said, even like the last pass I think he threw was the long pass to Goddard, where Goddard, they schemed, the defender fell. But they schemed the guy open, and he underthrows him. And instead of a potential touchdown, he might have still got caught by the corners. But a potential longer gain, 60, 70-yard gain, turned to a 41-yard gain because he had to stop and wait for the pass. While, again, obviously he wants to move in the other direction. But, again, he could have stopped, set his feet, and let him down the field a little bit. And then, boom, he catches it on the run, and then there's a touchdown. And so, like I said, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts would have or would not have made a better throw. That's the kind of thing that you just like, all right, well, at least we'll see something new. And I think that's really what the biggest thing is. They just want to see something new out there on offense. Like, you're tired of seeing the offense struggle in, like, the same exact ways every week. Like, the offense is going to struggle with Jalen Hurts in there, but it's going to struggle for different reasons, potentially. So that'll be interesting to watch, you would think, in theory. So, like I said, that'll be good to see, at least for an Eagles fan. Just give some incitement and something new to watch, as opposed to, like I said, every Eagles game basically looks the exact same. The defense kind of plays well in the beginning. The offense can't move the ball, and by the end, the defense kind of folds because they are out on the field all the time. And then maybe the Eagles score a late touchdown to make the score look a little bit more respectable. But, at the end of the day, they were never really that close to winning the game. As I said, that's short term. A longer term, they have a quarterback controversy now. And it's one of their own doing. Again, once you gave Wentz the money, that says that, hey, look, you're our guy. Let's try to do everything we can to maximize you, get you as good as you can be, get you playing as well as you can be. And thus, like I said, and then whatever happens from there, happens from there. And you have last season where it goes, a lot of our receivers got hurt and we were playing with guys off the street in practice squad and stuff like that. Now, we made the playoffs once they get hurt, but like I said, we can't have that happen again. So what they do, they went out and drafted a receiver in the first round. Cool. That's fine. I get that. Did they draft the right one? Debatable. Obviously, they could have drafted Justin Jefferson. Don't know what he would have looked like in this offense because the offense has been so bad this year. And obviously, Rager missed some time because he was hurt. Like, Justin Jefferson wasn't this good to start. Like, he got better, and then he's just been great ever since once he kind of figured it out. Like, he got better. I mean, he once he figured it out, he's been great. Like I said, it took him a couple of weeks, I believe, to get, like, he didn't get 100 yards first game. I could be wrong about that. Let me not say that, because that might not be factual. Like I said, Rager was basically hurt, like, in the second game, and was out for, like, 5-6 games, something like that. So like I said, it took him a while to get back in, and then obviously he's had some rookie struggles and things like that. So you got to work through those. But still, like I said, maybe if he hadn't missed that time due to the injury, maybe he would have been up to speed quicker, and maybe would have been making some of the impact plays he made in this game against the Packers, or his last game against the Packers a couple weeks ago, which maybe would have made a difference. Like I said, so okay, you draft him in the first round after not get him going. They could have got Robbie Anderson in free agency, chose not to. Though again, you don't really know if he wants to sign with you. Probably maybe always wanted to go back to Matt Rule. You could have went out and got Perriman, who's been all right for the Jets. But no, they decided we're going to stick with Deshaun, who's going to come back from injury. He's going to be back healthier and better and everything. And obviously that didn't last very long. I'm going to stick with Alshon, who's been good more or less with the Eagles when he's healthy, but hasn't really been healthy. And now is bad. He getting paid a lot of money. I'm going to, like I said, not draft a receiver in the second round to help out Wentz. Not draft a receiver in the third round to help out Wentz. And on top of that, for multiple weeks, your second and third round picks are basically doing nothing. Like Hurts would get a couple plays here and there. And then the third round pick, Davion Taylor, was basically just special teams. So that you didn't help out the defense, who needed help, needed a second corner, needed a linebacker help. One more impactful linebacker help, probably needed another safety in there as well. Didn't get that. And then also, like I said, didn't get another weapon. This said also they were supposed to be in on J.K. Dobbins, though the pick apparently was going to be between those two, J.K. Dobbins and Jeremy Chin, if Hurts wasn't there for some reason. Since Hurts was there, they're like, hey, he should be better, or he's the guy, because it's not like we need somebody to replace Corey Clement because he's been bad this year. They literally had to sign Jordan Howard off the street, and he was getting carries in this game. Absurd. But whatever. It's not like we couldn't have used Jeremy Chin. It's not like our linebacker situation is bad. It's not like we don't have a future safety on the roster, really. Like, maybe it's Kayvon Wallace, but we don't really know. Maybe it's Graylin Arnold, but we really don't know. Like I said, not like any of those guys Denzel Mims wouldn't have been impactful. Logan Wilson wouldn't have been impactful. Christian Fulton wouldn't have been impactful. Again, there were a lot of guys available. Willie Gay wouldn't have been impactful. There's a lot of guys that could have been drafted in the second round that would have been more useful to this team than a backup quarterback. But because nothing in Philadelphia is ever easy, they decided, hey, we're going to draft a quarterback and create a controversy where there didn't need to be one. Like, I understand they probably got spooked because of the concussion. They were like, oh, we want to make sure we have a good backup quarterback in case Carson gets hurt or whatever. But also, one, you go outside of it. And two, like, what are the chances, like, if he got hurt again this year in a playoff game, that Jalen Hurts would be ready to step in and play after not playing all year? Because basically what happened with McCown, like, he never really had to see the field, then he had to come in and see the field, then he ended up getting hurt in the game as well. Like I said, that, like, any backup that hasn't played all year and has to come in and play in a playoff game is probably not going to do that great, rookie or otherwise. And also, then, what did you groom Nate Sudfeld for like 3 years? If he's not good, like, he's not even good enough to suit up. Like, in a game where you were sometimes playing Hurts, like, sporadically in the game for plays here and there. Like, what happened if he got hurt on one of those plays? Now you don't have a backup quarterback. So, like I said, they don't even think Sudfeld's good enough to suit up. So, like I said, it's then what is it? Why was he on the roster for? Why was he brought back? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like I said, but because of that, you knew, again, if Wentz plays better, then it's all fine and dandy, and none of this is really discussion. But because he's playing so poorly, now for weeks people have been begging for Jalen Hurts to get in. Don't know what'll happen when he gets in there. Obviously, I don't think this week's going to be good, but I think the rest of it could be all right. But like I said, they're basically been begging for Jalen Hurts, which again wouldn't have been happening if it was Nate Sudfeld, in my opinion. People would have been asking for it, but the call wouldn't have been as loud because he's not a rookie and he's not as unknown as like I said, Sudfeld's not as unknown as Hurts is. We really don't know what Hurts could be as a NFL quarterback. So like I said, they created a controversy where they didn't have to. After we just got through the Foles and Wentz thing, we were done with it for a year. Again, he gets a concussion. It's a nasty hit, but it's like a fluke thing. They're like, oh no, we gotta create another controversy. So we drafted a quarterback. And then, like, supposedly he said, before he, like, when he called Wentz, he said, like, hey, look, if I do this and get Hurts, and I'm going to do whatever I can to surround you with as much talent as I can. And that turned out to be a lie. Because they could have used that second round pick to trade up for CeeDee Lamb, who's been good this year. Could have maybe traded for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know if they would have asked for Miles Sanders or somebody like that. So that's why I was probably out. Could have traded for Stephon Diggs. Like, it's not like good receivers weren't out there and available. Didn't get any of those. Again, drafted receivers in the 5th and 6th round. 6th round pick basically has been hurt and then sick or whatever, hasn't suited up once. And the 5th round pick, John Hightower, has been bad when he's been out there. So, like I said, they got a franchise quarterback, or they paid a guy to be a franchise quarterback, and then didn't really do their best to surround him with the necessary pieces. And then he's playing poorly, and now you got to figure out what you're going to do long term. Because again, he's making a lot of money. The dead cap, if you cut him, is crazy. That's not going to happen. Even if you trade him, it's still kind of crazy. You're paying him over like $30 million to not be on the team. If you trade him, like, that's absurd. But then again, if Jalen Hurts comes in and plays decently well these next 4 games, and then there's a legitimate quarterback competition, you would think, at least this offseason. And if Wentz doesn't win that, then now you have the most expensive backup in NFL history. For why? Because they didn't have to pay him when they paid him. They could have just got him. Yeah, they paid him after 2018. They didn't have to. They chose to. Like I said, they had a 5th-year option. You could have seen how the 4th year played out and then paid him this offseason. Or let's say go through 5 years and do the franchise tag. Like, they could have prolonged this, but they said that, hey, look, Carson, you're our guy. And then they did things to not show him he's the guy. Because again, if you think he's the guy, why are you drafting a quarterback in the 2nd round? Like, again, 4th, 5th round, all right, it's a different story. You want a developmental backup, cool. Second round picks are supposed to play. Like, at some point, like, they're not supposed to go their whole rookie contract and basically not see the field, which is what you were hoping for in theory. Like, Wentz plays well and he stays healthy, so Hurts doesn't see the field. What sense does that make for a 2nd round pick? None. I'm going to tell you how much sense. 0 sense that makes. So like I said, it's what Hurts was going to have to play at some point, you would think, or else why would you draft him in the 2nd round? And now that is that time. But then, like I said, depending on what happens, then where do you go? On top of the fact that, like, the coach and the GM are kind of how the last 4 games play out could determine if they have jobs with the Eagles still. So like I said, now there's even more incentive to get him out there just to see, like, hey, look, maybe we can, like, if Doug shows, like, hey, I can run a good offense with him, like, we can just get rid of Carson, or, like, how we can be like, hey, look, he's not that bad, like, that was a good pick, like, don't fire me, please. So like I said, now he's out there for whatever, not for whatever reason, again, it was time to make a change, but like I said, now their entire franchise is in flux, when this time last year you thought, well, again, they were kind of still struggling, but until they kind of turned around late. But like I said, you thought you at least in theory had a franchise quarterback. Now you don't even know if you have that. You don't know if you have a quarterback short term, you don't know if you have a quarterback long term. And it's no one's creation other than the Eagles. And also Carson Wentz was playing poorly. If he played well this year, wouldn't be a story. Like I said, there's no reason to create this controversy. If Sudfeld's the backup, there isn't this controversy. So, now these next 4 games will have major impacts on how the Eagles next year and the next 5-10 years of the Eagles will look. Like I said, the next 4 games will determine most likely if Doug still has a job, if Howie still has a job, if, like I said, if Hurts kind of stinks it up, then that pick looks like a waste. If he plays well, then now, like, do you move Carson? Do you, like, try to bring him back next year? And just tell him, like, hey, we just wanted to get you out of your own head, and hopefully this will help. Like I said, like, what do you do? Like I said, if he plays decently well these last 4 games, say they win 3 out of 4 of them, how do you, like, he's the quarterback next year. Like, how do you then go back to Wentz? And then, like I said, say they start out 0-2. Again, it's going to be a disaster. Like, there's no way. Like I said, if he plays decently enough, like, he's the quarterback going forward. And now either you have the most expensive backup literally ever, or you have to trade him and pay him a lot of money to not be on your team after giving him a big contract. Most likely with a new GM or a new coach. One or the other, if not both. Complete and utter mess. Again, we'll see kind of how it plays out. I don't expect Jalen Hurts to be that good this week because the Saints are really good. But moving forward, I think he'll probably be all right because the Cardinals and the Cowboys the next 2 weeks. I mean, the Cardinals defense isn't bad, but like I said, it's going to be in Arizona in the domes. Like I said, nice surface, nice weather. Like you said, don't worry about those type of things. And the Cowboys, their defense stinks. You're going to be in Jerry World. He's from, I think he's from Houston, so or from the Houston area. So like I said, he'll probably want to show out back home. And then, like, last game's Washington, they're a little bit better. And we'll see kind of how that goes. But, as I expect him to play better. And again, he's just more mobile than Wentz right now, which is the important thing because their offensive line is still bad. But he can move around a little better. He's more confident when he moves. Like I said, that's kind of what they need. They need a guy that like is confident in the pocket of his ability to move around and find guys open and or tuck and run when he needs to. Like Carson, he's just so spooked right now because getting hit and getting pressured all the time. And sometimes it's his own fault that he's not running into pressures. He's like, again, escaping the pocket and going in a direction where there's no receivers, there's nowhere for him to go with the ball. It's like, it's all kind of a mess right now. So he needed to get out of there, get out of his own head, and maybe try to fix him going forward. Like I said, if Jalen Hurts plays well, it's going to be kind of hard to then be like, hey, Carson, here's your team back. Even though this backup that came in played better than you with similar pieces around him, like, it's going to be a whole mess. But what are the Eagles without creating a quarterback controversy at this point? They want to be a quarterback factory. That's not what they are. But, they know how to keep themselves in a quarterback mess. There is no one more popular in Philadelphia than the backup quarterback. It's kind of wild, to say the least. Speaking of wild, Ohio State, Michigan, not going down this weekend. That's wild. And also we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the college football playoff and their new rankings and kind of how some of the non-Power 5 conference teams got screwed, which is not surprising to myself. So we discussed those right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Stars on the college football side of things, Ohio State, Michigan, not going down. Not surprising, but it is not going down. The annual rivalry game was canceled because of an increase in COVID-19 cases over the past week within the Michigan program. The school announced on Tuesday a decision was made after conversations with medical experts, health department officials, and the university administration. The number of positive tests has continued to trend in an upward direction over the last 7 days. Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel said, "We have not been cleared to participate in practice at this time. Unfortunately, we will be unable to field a team due to COVID-19 positives and the associated quarantining required of close contact individuals." Obviously, like you said, the decision was disappointing for everybody. And obviously, it's disappointing most, you could argue, for Ohio State, because now Ohio State will have only played 5 total games this season, which is under the threshold put forth by the Big Ten Conference to compete in the championship game against Northwestern. It was supposed to be 6. Now I said they're at 5. The rule states that teams must play 6 games, must play in 6 games in order to qualify for a championship game, unless the average number of games played throughout the conference falls below 6. And unfortunately, other teams will have played at least 6, if not more, so that's going to hurt Ohio State's case. We'll continue to remain transparent. Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren said Tuesday, and he said they're going to continue to communicate internally with coaches and athletic directors as they try to make a decision that's going to impact the conference greatly over the next 2 weeks. Obviously, if they allow Ohio State to get into the championship game or not, is going to be a big deal. So they kind of got to figure that out because if they don't, then they have no choice but to figure it out. Like I said, if they don't let them in, then Ohio State doesn't get into college football playoff, and then now no Big Ten team gets in college football playoff. And if they do let them in, then you square the rules for Ohio State so they can get into the playoff. Like I said, it is what it is either way. Apparently, Big Ten athletic directors will meet Wednesday, according to sources, when they could discuss changing the benchmark. So yeah, it's kind of where we are at. Again, they're not the only school that has to deal with this. Purdue couldn't practice on Tuesday. Indiana no, it's take the back. If Purdue has to cancel their game against Indiana, the Big Ten can move and have Indiana and Ohio State play again, which would be kind of wild and greatly unnecessary. And also, if the conference were not to alter its rules and Ohio State were not to play Saturday, Indiana would win the East Division and represent them in the conference championship game. So see, by that, even though Indiana had to pause activities itself, so like I said, we'll kind of see what happens there with like I said, their situation, because like I said, they're not alone in them being Ohio State is not alone in potentially having their game affected. I think it was also like, well, Maryland hasn't played in a couple of weeks, but like I said, we'll see what happens there. If Indiana can't play, then they will reach 7. Like I said, if they can't play because of COVID issues of their own, then like I said, that could be a bit of a problem moving forward for the conference. Like I said, then they couldn't play. So we got to see about them. And then I think who's in third in the East. Then it's Maryland, who wouldn't have enough games to play. Then if Penn State beats Michigan State, then they could potentially get in. Like I said, that's a whole mess. They're not gonna allow that to happen. But still, like I said, they're gonna have to figure some things out with Ohio State. And also, Ohio State would be an interesting test for the College Football Playoff Committee, which we will discuss now, because it's clear that they have no intention of really changing a whole lot when it comes to like the rankings, which again, we'll talk about whether or not that's right or if it's wrong. But as of right now, the top 6 teams stay exactly the same this weekend. So the top 4 are still Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Ohio State. Granted, Ohio State look good, but they are the only team in the top 13, because obviously Northwestern at 14 has only played 6 games, and obviously USC at 15 has only played 4. But they're the only team like the top 10, obviously, that have played less than 8 games. And they're 5-0. Granted, they are 5-0. But like I said, there are other teams below them that you could argue have better schedules and better resumes that are not going to get in just because it's Ohio State, and that's where they started. And I said, is that fair? Maybe, maybe not. But again, I still think you could make a legitimate argument that Ohio State's one of the 4 best teams in the country right now. So like I said, it is what it is. It's just like the game situation is just rough because the Big Ten started so late that they just, like I said, just messed them up. But yeah, like I said, so I know another thing people talked about was like, oh, have Texas A&M and Ohio State play this weekend because both their games got postponed. I would just like to say that is a god-awful idea. Now, I understand the logic of thinking because we just saw the BYU Coastal Carolina game. We'll talk about Coastal Carolina and kind of how they're getting shafted a little bit in the rankings. Oh, we saw that game and it was like, oh, that was good and that was competitive and that was fun. But in that scenario, both teams have something to gain. Like, Coastal Carolina wins, now they have a shot at New Year's Six Bowl. If BYU wins, they have a shot at New Year's Six Bowl. Like, the winner of that game had a shot at New Year's Six Bowl. Like, they have something to gain. On both sides. Again, you would argue BYU had more to lose, but like I said, both sides have something to gain. Ohio State gains nothing from playing Texas A&M, other than, I guess, confirming for some people that they deserve to be in the playoff, even though they're going to get in regardless. And Texas A&M, like I said, all right, it helps them get a win over Ohio State, which is nice. But like I said, if Florida beats Alabama, they're getting like I said, like the only team you could really jump is Ohio State, really. And like I said, it's still, even with that, Ohio State's not going to play is going to play in a Big Ten championship game. Like Texas A&M is not doing that. Like they're not playing a championship game, like at all. So like I said, it's a weird spot to be in, honestly. Because the championship game's already set in the SEC. It's going to be Alabama. It's going to be Florida. So like I said, Texas A&M is just going to play an extra game just to play an extra game, and then not play in a championship game. So like I said, if Florida wins, then they jump them regardless. If they lose to Ohio State, then now they have 2 losses, and now they drop down even further. Like I said, there's no real benefit for either team, in my opinion. Especially not for Ohio State. Like, Ohio State's already in. Why would I go and just play a game just to play a game, just so I could have 6? Like, I get it, but, like, the Big Ten's going to skirt the rules so that I can get into a conference championship game. I'll be all right. Like, well, I'm just going to play an extra regular season game, like, just for practice. Like, no, I'm not going to say that's not going to happen. Because I guess it could, technically, but, like, again, for Ohio State, it makes absolutely 0 sense. They're already in the playoffs right now. They just need to not lose. That's it. Just not lose their next game, which is most likely going to be against Northwestern. and boom, you're good. Like I said, I guess technically they could play Indiana again. Like I said, why would they? Like the Big Ten was one of the schools that was like, hey, we're not gonna have you play any teams out of conference. Why would they then skirt the rules just to let just let Ohio State get to 6 games, even though I'm pretty sure you need to play 6 conference games. Like that was the point. So I don't think having a 6 game outside the conference really, like, what does that affect? Because again, if they lose that game, all it does is hurt them in the ranking. Like doesn't affect them in the Big Ten because they'll be 5-1, but they'll still be 5-0 in the conference. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's literally a pointless game for Ohio State. Absolutely pointless. I saw people saying that, and I didn't understand that at all. But that's just me. So like I said, we get out of the top 6, we get to number 7, and that's where the issues start to lie for me. So Iowa State moved up 2 spots to I think they were 9. Now they're 7 after beating up on West Virginia pretty good, and that's interesting because they are currently 8-2. Cincinnati is 8-0. I don't know if you could say, and again, the only reason they're 8-0 is because their last 2 games got canceled. So it is what it is. But I don't know if you could say for certain that Iowa State is a better team. And then Cincinnati now, again, if they beat Oklahoma in 2 weeks, then hey, they're going to be ahead of Cincinnati. It doesn't really matter. But again, the Oklahoma team they're playing is not the Oklahoma team they played earlier in the season. And they played Oklahoma early when they were kind of struggling, and they beat them by 7. Fair. And they also beat Texas, who's technically a top 20 team, but like also like they're just top 20 because like again, there's not really a whole lot of good teams in the conference this year. Like Missouri is like the 25th team, and like are they like really that good? I mean, like I said, if they hadn't got that game against Georgia postponed, they're probably 5-4 right now. Instead of being 5-3 now, technically, like I said, they got smoked by Tennessee at home. Not to say Tennessee's bad, but like Tennessee also like is not ranked right now, so and there is that. So like I said, the ratings are kind of weird, but I said Iowa State again. Their 2 wins against Oklahoma and Texas are noteworthy. I will give you that. But also, what about their loss to Louisiana to begin the season by 17, mind you? It's not like they lost a close game. It was like an upset or something. Like they got smoked. They got absolutely smoked to begin the season while being ranked 23rd. That's not good. They also lost to Oklahoma State. That's not good. Now, mind you, Coastal Carolina with the win over BYU now has a win over BYU and has beaten Louisiana already this season, who again beat Iowa State, who's number 7 in the country, mind you, in Louisiana it was on the road. Coastal Carolina did that, and they had to play them again. So like I said, they could have 2 wins potentially over the team that beat the number 7 team in the country, currently ranked. How are they not higher? Like I said, the whole reason for like them against Cincinnati, Iowa State, is because they got the 2 top 20 wins and Cincinnati doesn't, which again, not their fault. They just can play who's on their schedule, and the teams who are on their schedule, they've beaten. Again, there's only so much they can do. Like I said, they would have beaten a top 25 team potentially in Tulsa, but the game got canceled, so couldn't do that. And I think that game got postponed and then canceled. So he tried to play the game twice, did not happen. Is what it is. Like I said, Iowa State being ranked so highly is just kind of wild because I don't know if they're a better team than Cincinnati, and I don't know if their resume is better. I don't know if their resume is even better than Indiana. Like Indiana's 1 loss came to Ohio State in a game that again was out of hand early, but that they fought back in and gave Ohio State all that they could handle by the end. And then they said they just beat number 16 Wisconsin on the road with the backup quarterback. Like, is that better? Is Iowa State clearly better than that? Are they even, like I said, we'll find out if they're even a clearly better team than Oklahoma when they play them coming up. And like I said, Coastal Carolina is 10-0 with 2 top 20 wins, or 2 top 25 wins, because I guess, because Louisiana was 21 at the time in which they beat them. 2 top 25 wins, but no top 25 losses, while Iowa State has 2 top 20 wins, but also two losses to top 20 teams. Yeah, because Louisiana 19, so 2 losses to top 20 teams, and the one they lost was by 17. So like I said, it's a tough year, and it's a really big realization to non-Power 5 conference teams to be like, yeah, you guys don't got a shot at making the playoff. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen for you. Like that's what's clear to me, is that like they will give it to a Power 5 conference team over a non-Power 5 conference team, even if the non-Power 5 conference team, their resume is nearly as good and they have a better record. And that's what this Iowa State ranking is showing me. That regardless of, like I said, how good you are as a non-Power 5 conference school, the chances of you getting to the playoff, again, unless you're Notre Dame, and really the reason Notre Dame got in this year is because they're in the ACC. So that allowed them to play Clemson. Because like I said, I don't know what their resume looks like without Clemson on it. And like other ACC schools on it. Like again, they played, I mean, well, they didn't play like Miami, which would have been a nice one. But like they played North Carolina. That was a nice win. Yeah, I guess that was really about it. Yes, they played Notre Dame. They played Clemson, North Carolina. So like I said, the Clemson win was what sealed it for them to be able to get it into the playoff, even if they lose, I believe. Like I said, that doesn't happen if they're not playing in an ACC schedule. Like if they're playing an independent schedule, like BYU has done. All right, maybe they can play a Coastal Carolina game, but like they're not going to play the number one team in the country. That's not going to happen. So like I said, this is just evidence or further evidence for those non-Power conference teams to say that it's going to be nearly impossible for you to get into the playoff. Like I said, when UCF didn't do it, and then they smoked Auburn in the bowl game, if I remember correctly, like they did this. Like it's pretty confident, it's pretty evident that it's just not going to happen for you. It's unfortunate, but it's not going to happen for you. And like I said, I think that's basically what the playoff committee is saying this year with these rankings, and the fact that Iowa State, with 2 losses, again, their wins are quote-unquote more impressive just because they're more over-named schools. Like I said, Texas is not that good this year. And Oklahoma, beginning of the year, was playing poorly because Spencer Rattler hadn't really settled in yet. And like I said, they beat Oklahoma again. Different story. Like I said, Oklahoma, when they lost to Iowa State, it was coming off of a loss to Kansas State, who is currently 4-5. I'm just saying. So like I said, we'll see what happens there with that. Like, and then like I said, and they lost Oklahoma State, who's like not even top 4 team in the conference anymore. Iowa State did. So like I said, it's just that like their wins are like kind of impressive, but their losses like are like kind of bad. Especially when like their biggest loss of the year, they lost to Louisiana by more than they lost to Oklahoma State, which I don't know if that tells you more about Louisiana or Oklahoma State, honestly. But yeah, like I said, Oklahoma State just lost to TCU this past weekend, who was only 5-4. At least Louisiana, lost to, like their 2 losses may end up being to Coastal Carolina, who's potentially undefeated, beat BYU at home, and then beat Louisiana by 3 on the road. So like I said, it's just more evidence that it's going to be tough for any non-Power Conference school to get into the college football playoff. Unless you're in Notre Dame and you happen to go into, but you're a Power 5 school this year because you're in a Power 5 conference. I said it sucks for the Cincinnatis of the world, the Coastal Carolinas, even like BYU, if they had won, they probably wouldn't have moved up that much. Like I said, it sucks for those kind of schools because, again, you could have a great year and you're not going to get rewarded for it, most likely. Which is, again, why people want to expand the playoff to 8. But then again, now if you're a Power 5 school, you don't want to lose to the Cincinnatis or the BYUs or the Coastal Carolinas of the world in the playoff. Like, you don't want that. Again, Alabama and those teams will be fine, most likely. But again, if, say, Cincinnati or whatever got up to 5, and now they get to play Ohio State, or they get to play Notre Dame or somebody like that. Like, you wouldn't want that if you're one of those schools. So like I said, then you lose Cincinnati, and then it's a big story. Like I said, if you only let 4 teams in, most of the time you're going to let in the conference champion of the ACC, SEC, and Big Ten, and then the 4th team will be the Big 12 or Pac-12 or whoever. Like, again, very rarely is it going to be a non-Power 5 school, which, again, just unfortunate. Not how the playoffs should be. It's supposed to be the 4 best teams in theory, but in practice, that's very rarely what it is. So that's unfortunate for them. But speaking of something that is not unfortunate, that is the play of Josh Allen we talked about. So, looking ahead, could he do enough to sneak his way into the MVP discussion? Like, in terms of, like, again, he's probably at 3 right now, but could he do enough to sneak himself into 2, or maybe even be the MVP favorite by the end of the season? So we'll discuss that right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Look at the MVP race in the I almost said in the MVP in the NFL. At this point right now, with a month left to go in the season, I'd probably say you're down to 3 people, most likely. Again, some people could have a good month and maybe could catapult themselves into the discussion. But as of right now, I would say Mahomes, Rodgers, I guess Josh Allen. Like, I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know who I would have ahead of Josh Allen at this point in time right now. And he's like the team's 9-3. I believe I want to double check that, make sure I got that right. But I'm pretty sure the team's 9-3 right now. Yeah, they're 9-3. They're the third best team in the AFC currently. At least, well, they're tied with the Browns record wise, but I guess in terms of tiebreakers or however they just divide it up, they are the third best team. So like I said, behind the Steelers, behind the Chiefs, and I think that's pretty clear and that's pretty fair that they're definitely behind the Steelers and definitely behind the Chiefs. Like I said, Steelers, we'll find out on Sunday night, but I said definitely behind the Chiefs, clear. I said those are the 3 best teams, I would argue. But like I said, with Mahomes, you got a guy who through the season so far in 12 games, he's at 3,800 yards, 31 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. 8.2 yards per attempt, 317 yards per game, 113 passer rating, 85 QBR, higher than his MVP season. So, there's that. He's completing about 68% of his passes, highest of his career. So, again, he's not going to hit his MVP numbers of 5,050, but he's probably going to get at least over 4,700 yards. Probably, he could potentially actually hit 5,000 yards again. Let me not say that. If he keeps up at his current pace, there's at 318 for 4 games. Yeah, that would put him over 5,000 yards. And at his current pace of touchdowns, he would be at, if he played all 16, be at around 40, 41. So like I said, not as much as his MVP year, but still fairly solid. So he's at 31-2. Also, again, obviously he's added a little bit of rushing, two more rushing touchdowns, 241 yards on the ground, 16 first downs. He's run forward. So like I said, he's playing great, and he's going to have a chance to pad his stats a little. Well, not to say pad his stats, but I'm going to say he's going to have some good tests these next few weeks coming up, because he's got the Dolphins this coming weekend in Miami. Then he's on the road again in New Orleans, probably with Drew Brees back for that one. But again, he's going to be in New Orleans, 2 good defenses. Then he plays the Falcons, then he plays the Chargers. So like I said, that's a little bit different. Also, again, we'll see. Well, I guess they probably have to keep playing depending on if the Steelers lose. And even if the Steelers lose, you probably still got to keep playing, because they need to lose basically 2 for you to be good in terms of the bye. So you probably still going to have to play at least a decent amount, probably at least a half in Week 17 against the Chargers. Like I said, Dolphins, Saints back-to-back on the road. Going to be a good test for him because they're both good defenses. I'm saying that'd be a good test. And again, just if he continues to show out in those games, then be like, all right, it's going to be hard for anybody to surpass him for the MVP. But like I said, those 2 defenses are both solid. So like I said, if he shows out against them, then that'll be a good one. But like I said, numbers look great, and he's going to have a chance to, like I said, continue to not only just add to those stats, but again, showcase his ability against good defenses, which again would be nothing new for him. Aaron Rodgers, he's at 3,400 yards, so less than Mahomes, obviously. But he's got 36 touchdowns to Mahomes, 31, and he's only thrown 4 interceptions. Quite good. He's at 8.2 yards per attempt, 283 yards per game, but also they run the ball a little bit more. Fair. 118 passer rating, 84.6 QBR. Like I said, his numbers outside of the yards are very much comparable, if not a little bit better, than Mahomes is. Like I said, Mahomes, they're 11-1. It's hard to say. But with the Packers' last 4 games, their schedule is not that difficult. They play the Lions next weekend, then they play the Panthers, then they play the Titans. You never know with the Titans. Though you get Derrick Henry in the cold, probably not going to be fun for the Packers defense. And then you close out with the Bears. I mean, they're a mess. Mitch will probably be starting. You're not really afraid of the Bears. So like I said, they're going to have, they don't really have the marquee matchups. Like I said, their biggest marquee matchup at this point is the Titans game, which again is AFC, NFC. So it doesn't have the same cachet. Obviously, Saints is AFC, NFC, but also they're potential Super Bowl contenders. I don't know if and also, they're not the ones he's currently, but they could be by next weekend. But I don't know if Packers, Titans can be built in that same this potential Super Bowl matchup. It's not going to be built that way. Whether it could or couldn't be is a different story. But it's not going to be built that way. That much we do know. So like I said, that's going to take a little bit of a cachet off the game in and of itself, to me at least. So again, we'll see how that goes. Like I said, he's got some bad, like I said, Lions, Panthers next 2 weeks. Gave Aaron Rodgers a chance to pad his stats. And like I said, even though Mahomes has the better record and things like that, there's at least legit argument to be made with Aaron Rodgers having similar, if not better, stats. And I said, then, things could get a little bit interesting for the MVP. And like I said, then that's where Josh Allen comes in. Because Josh Allen currently, we kind of already touched on him a little bit with his stats, but he's currently at 3,400 yards, completing 70% of his passes, has 26 touchdowns to only, I was looking at the wrong thing. He has 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, so again, higher number of interceptions. It has a 106 quarterback rating, 75 QBR, so again, a little bit lower than both Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, and also his yards per game. Again, it's comparable to Aaron Rodgers at 283.6, but obviously, what is that? 30 yards behind Mahomes, 30 plus yards behind Mahomes, because he's at 318. So like I said, a little bit behind there, but he does also have the rushing, where he's at 322 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground, which is obviously more than both Rodgers and Mahomes currently have. So he's at 32 combined touchdowns. Mahomes at 33 combined touchdowns, and Aaron Rodgers is at 37 because he has 1 rushing touchdown. So he has 37 combined touchdowns. So again, they were a little bit behind Rodgers. He's more passing touchdowns, but just the different dynamic Josh Allen brings to an offense is different than what Mahomes and what Aaron Rodgers bring. And then, as we talked about, you got this next upcoming primetime game against the Steelers, Sunday night, national TV. That's going to be a big one to showcase everybody, hey, just how good you are against that maybe, and in many people's eyes, including my own, the top defense in the league. Obviously, it's taking little bits of hits with injuries and things like that, but still top defense in the league. Then you play not the Panthers. You play the Patriots, on Monday night in 2 weeks, and then you play the Broncos on prime time on a Saturday at 4:30. So like I said, their next 3 games are national TV. Like I said, sometimes those things matter. Like a narrative can be built. And again, I still think Mahomes will probably get it as long as he doesn't completely fall off a cliff to the last month of the season, which with Mahomes is going to be difficult to do because he is, in fact, Patrick Mahomes. So that is not an easy thing for him to. It's not he very rarely plays a bad game, let alone multiple bad games in a row, let alone a bad play for a month. Like, that doesn't normally happen. It happened a little bit last year when he was coming back from the injury, but like other than that, Gavin doesn't go a month without he doesn't go a month without a good game. That's what I mean to say. But like I said, due to the fact that Josh Allen is going to be on national TV for 3 straight games against the Steelers, who are a great team, the Broncos, who are whatever, and then the Patriots, who have been the cream of the crop in the AFC East for 17, 18, 20 years. Like, basically. Like I said, they've been the team to beat in that division. Granted, like, the Bills should beat them, but they didn't. They almost lost to them the first time if Cam doesn't fumble. They at least got, I think, kicked the field goal to tie it up. Or maybe they even score a touchdown, so we don't know. But like I said, 3 straight national TV games for Josh Allen. That, in my opinion, is going to matter. Like I said, you look at the Packers schedule. The Packers don't... Well, they got a 4:25 game against the Lions, but that's not like a Fox primetime game. It's just like, again, I think the Fox game of the week is Saints-Eagles, unfortunately for myself. Then they play a Saturday primetime game against the Panthers. That helps, but against Packers-Panthers, like, no one really cares. And then they play the Titans on Sunday night. So he's got 2 national TV games left. And then the Chiefs, let me see what they have. Well, obviously, I know the Saints one's obviously national TV. Yes, the 4:25 CBS games, that'd be the Tony Romo game. But like I said, the other 3 games are all at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock against the Dolphins, 1 o'clock against the Falcons, and 1 o'clock against the Chargers. It says Mahomes is Mahomes. Anything great he does is going to be on the highlights and on social media anyway. So they don't need to be on national TV. But I feel like for a potential narrative and for viewers that haven't watched a whole lot of Bills games this year, because obviously everyone knows what's going on with Mahomes and Rodgers. But for people that haven't watched a lot of Bills games, they're going to have a good chance to watch them over the next 3 weeks. Well, 4 weeks, because they had the Monday night game against the Niners. So like I said, that's 4 straight national TV games for Josh Allen and the Bills. And like I said, if he continues to play well, you could maybe see a switch in the narrative, because it's not like, again, now we're talking about like a fringe playoff team. We're talking about a team that could potentially win their division. A team with a quarterback that's going to have maybe somewhere in the range of 40 plus total touchdowns on the season, and a record that could be anywhere from, well, I guess the worst it could be is 9-7, but could potentially be, if they win all 4 of their games, 13-3. Again, it's going to be behind the Chiefs most likely. I don't see the Chiefs losing 2 games, but still, like I said, if you do, we're like, hey, we don't want to give it to Mahomes again, and if Josh Allen balls out and leads them to a 13-3 record, I think there's at least a conversation to be had. Like I said, Rodgers is Rodgers. He's going to be there because he deserves to be there, but also, like I said, he's won it before. I think won it once or twice, if I remember correctly. Like again, he's won it. Let me double check, see how many times he's won it. He has won it. He's won it twice. Like I said, I don't know if they want to give him another one, but again, if they did, he would be deserving of it. But also, you'd have to be another guy that probably they'd have to go 13-3. But they went 13-3 last year. He didn't play this well, but they went 13-3 last year. Like, I don't know if that's going to sway the voters in the same way. You know what I'm saying? Josh Allen put some more highlight reel plays on tape, has a couple more 3-4 touchdown games on national TV, beats a team like the Steelers, beats a team like the Patriots. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying we're going to be having a conversation about, could Josh Allen win the MVP? Like, not even just be like, all right, the first month of the season is like, oh, could he be in consideration? Like, no. They're not talking about consideration anymore. We're talking about, like, could he legitimately get first place votes for the MVP award? And I think there's a legitimate chance that could happen. Could he potentially get all-pro votes and potentially be an all-pro quarterback? I think that could potentially happen. It's going to be tough because, again, he's not the best quarterback in his conference. But still, like I said, these are all things that, like, were fun and cool to say about Josh Allen in the first month of the season. But now we are heading into the last month of the season, and these things are still ringing true. Again, the middle. You had a couple bad games there. Now, that's, like, again, just with turnovers and things like that. Like, he wasn't a flawless all season. Like, again, he had his up and down moments. Like those back-to-back losses. Like, the Tennessee game hurt, the Kansas City game hurt. Like, that, those are the things that are going to hurt. Is that, like, the 2 best teams he's played, you could argue, so far this year, and the Chiefs, obviously, and the Titans. Well, I guess it depends on how you feel about the Seahawks. I mean, two of the best teams he's played, he's lost to, and both of them weren't really that close, and both of them he played poorly in. So I think that'll be what does him in. Like I said, good performances against the Steelers, good performances against the Patriots. Then the narrative switches. And now we're talking about Josh Allen, not carrying, but like carrying a team to the playoffs, and maybe even the 2 or the 3 seed in the AFC. Like I said, that's a different conversation. Then it would be like, oh, Josh Allen, like, oh, the Bills are cool, but like they're not good enough to be over the hump. Like I said, if they lose to the Steelers, then I think the narrative's probably dead, unless he plays great and they just lose because their defense is terrible. But I said, if they lose and he has like 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, maybe a rushing touchdown in there, but they lose, like that's probably not going to be enough. And like I said, then it'll go back to being just Mahomes and Rodgers, assuming both of them don't also play poorly in their games. But also, like I said, the Packers play the Lions, and then the Chiefs play Miami. Not a bad team, but again, rookie quarterback. Like you never know. The Saints game next week will be the big one for Mahomes. I'm just not gonna light that Superdome on fire. I'm looking forward to that one. But like I said, the fact that we're sitting here I was recording this on December 8th, talking about Josh Allen being a potential MVP candidate, pretty impressive in my opinion for him. So shout out to him for, like I said, getting him. Shout out to Brian Dable and Sean McDermott and Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and all the guys on the Bills, especially that offense, that have gotten them right and carried them as the defense has improved. It was a little shaky there in the beginning, but it's gotten better. And like I said, now they're looking to be a top 3 team in the AFC. So that's pretty cool. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys, as always, for listening to me talk about sports. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review, wherever it's in your podcast. That'd be very appreciated, very helpful. Also, if you guys like, if you guys dislike, the ways you can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. If you want to talk about Josh Allen potentially being an MVP candidate, or what he could do to become the favorite, feel free to reach out to us. If you want to talk about how the big thing is about to bend the rules to let Ohio State make the college football playoffs, we can talk about that. Talk about how Coastal Carolina is getting hosed and how Iowa State is magically ranked above Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina when Coastal Carolina beat the team that Iowa State lost to by 17, mind you. They lost to Louisiana by 17. They might beat them twice. And like I said, if you're a non-Power 5 conference school, I'm sorry for you, because you're basically never going to make the playoffs. I don't know what you're going to... You basically have to join a Power 5 conference. Like I said, that's the only reason Notre Dame's going to get in. Is because they were in the ACC and could play Clemson. Well, they made it before, but like I said, they needed to be undefeated and stuff like that. But like I said, in this specific year, it wasn't going to happen. And like going forward, like the non-Power 5 conferences of the world are going to struggle to ever get in. Because like I said, they'll put in a 1-loss or a 2-loss Power 5 school over an undefeated non-Power 5 school. That's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Talk about James Harden, the mess that is Houston still. Talk about Jalen Hurts and what the Eagles are going to do from here with their quarterback position, because it's going to be a mess going forward with as much money as they have tied into Carson Wentz, and then over the next 2 years, like it's going to be a mess. But hey, it's a mess of their own creation. They have no one to blame but Howie Roseman. But yeah, didn't have to be this way. It is what it is. Also, we talk about just the better teams, I should say, in the NFC East. Of Washington Giants, who you think is going to get the division. Like I said, you can talk about any of that stuff, so feel free to reach out to us on social media. Before I get out of here, as I always do, I want to give a shout out to essential workers that have worked tirelessly through this pandemic to make sure everybody's safe and healthy. So doctors, nurses, EMTs, first responders, firefighters, grocery store workers, retail workers, postal service workers, FedEx, UPS, Amazon, anybody that's been deemed essential. Shout out to you. Like I said, even as the country has started to care less about the pandemic, I know you guys have started to care. So again, shout out to you for like dealing with everything that you've had to deal with this year, and again, doing your job and continue to do it to the best of your ability, so everybody else can be as safe and healthy as they choose to be. So again, shout out to you for that. Also, if you're going out to bars and restaurants still, if you still can, like I said, tip your bartender, tip your waiters, tip your waitresses nicely. If you have the means to. Just because I know it'll go a long way, seeing as I know, especially with some places not being able to do indoor dining, and now it's getting too cold for outdoor dining, or very limited indoor dining. Like the service industry is going to be hit hard. So if you are able to go to one of these places, just again, make sure you tip, not say tip accordingly, but tip generously. That's the better word, generously, because I said, this year especially, that industry, like many other industries, I'm not going to say it's just them, but many other industries have been hit hard, like I said. And they're a job that works strictly for tips. So, more or less. Again, they get very little paycheck. So, I mean, you guys know that already. But like I said, if you can, go a little bit beyond your means, I imagine it will be very appreciated. Also, wear your mask. Very simple, very easy. But that'll do it for me here today. I've been Chris Blades, and that has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.